You will be preparing the Muslim mentality to accept to go in the path which you are preparing for them. Turkish nationalism, on the other hand, was also aroused by the Western nations. The establishment of the Young Turks in Paris was to prove another devastating blow to the Islamic State and added to the divisive nationalist sentiments present. In 1908, the Young Turks, or the Committee of Union and Progress, were able to seize power, gaining the explicit approval of the West, for they were made up of like-minded nationalist and secular reformists. Later, when the British and French also supported Arab nationalist sentiments, some from among the Young Turks, such as Jamal Pasha, urged the Arabs to maintain unity among the citizens of the state in a gathering of Arab leaders in Damascus. However, his speech was full of patriotism and can be said to have consolidated patriotism and further distanced the idea of unification upon the Islamic Aqidah alone. The opportunities were beginning to present themselves for the European nations to start physically occupying and attacking a weakening giant. Russia and France began to attack and occupy parts of the Ottoman Caliphate in the second half of the 1700s. Russia, under the reign of Catherine, took parts of the Khilafah's land, and Napoleon of France briefly occupied Egypt in the year 1798. The French seized Algeria in 1830 and went on until they captured Tunisia in the year 1881. They then occupied Morocco in 1912. Italy received most of Libya in 1911, and East Africa was thus almost completely severed from the Caliphate's dominion. Likewise, Britain occupied Aden in 1839 and extended its control to Lahaj and the 9 protectorates from the borders of southern Yemen to the eastern border of the island. The English had already occupied India long before that date, and by colonizing it, they took Islamic sovereignty away from what was formerly an Islamically ruled land. Then, in 1882, Britain captured Egypt, and in 1889 spread its expansive influence over Sudan. The campaign against the Islamic world became intense everywhere, until the Ummah was exposed to a final, decisive blow. The Caliphate and its rulers were willing to accept any condition in order to halt this Western advance at some point, or at least decrease the weight of its nightmare. As compromises started taking place, resistance movements rose against the West from the Muslim world. A revolution broke out in Algeria. The Muslims in China revolted. The Mahdis in Sudan likewise. And the Senussi revolution also occurred, not to mention the growing call for the Caliphate's strengthening from Al-Hind. All of these upheavals are a proof pointing to the vitality inherent in the Islamic world, despite its weakness and decline. Nevertheless, these rebellious attempts failed, and the Western colonialists began to write the epitaph of the Ottoman Caliphate. With the outbreak of World War I, the Islamic State made the fatal mistake of entering the war. Germany had convinced the Sultan to enter the war as an opportunity to reverse the Western occupation of parts of the Islamic State. Knowing the British, French and Russian aspirations to eventually abolish the Caliphate, the Ottomani state entered into what was to prove a disastrous alliance with Germany into the Great War. Of the defining moments of the war, which triggered a series of political events towards the abolishment of the caliphate, was the rise of Mustafa Kemal. Being a little-known junior officer when the war broke out, Mustafa Kemal became known and celebrated after the Battle of Gallipoli. The British had sent the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps to land a fatal blow in the attempts to capture Istanbul. The battle went on for several months, with neither gaining an upper hand, when suddenly, in December 1915, the Allies withdrew in total secrecy. Simultaneously, the Allies were able to gain the support of the Arabs, and through the treachery of the likes of King Faisal and Sharif Hussein, were able to build an enemy within the Ottoman state. The British supported the Arab calls for independence, as well as promising them autonomy over what they deemed as their own lands. This severely weakened the Ottoman Caliphate, for although they may have been able to repel the external armies, the internal Arab rebellion was impossible to counter. Mustafa Kemal, with his newfound fame after the Battle of Gallipoli, began to suspiciously promote and work for the idea that the Ottoman Caliphate should withdraw from the war despite the victory at Gallipoli. He began to make public his holding of Britain in great esteem over the ally Germany, and with various political maneuvers was able to gain power, leading to the eventual official abolishment of the Caliphate. The destruction of the Caliphate, of the Khilafah, was of the most devastating events in Islamic history. The lands were divided, the Sharia made irrelevant, the Arabic language left unutilized, the call to prayer abandoned in places, the resources of the Muslims pillaged, and countless atrocities perpetrated against them.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Got the money. Hundreds and hundreds of banks, any bank or that has access to the U.S. Federal Reserve's discount.
Tell us who they are.
No.
A World Bank to destroy the economy of this country and to bring in global governance.
So who got the money?
To financial institutions in Europe and other countries.
Which ones?
I don't know.
$500 billion and you don't know who got the money?
Now, the first of a two-part conversation with former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan.
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.